I've got Jay here from the
Hello.
team on the brink.
Yeah.
And you're going to talk me through on the brink. So we're coming towards the end of the projects now.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of weeks left. How are you feeling about it, first of all?
Slightly trepidatious. It's one of those things where it's like, I'm like eager to get this project out of the way. We've been developing for so long, but at the same time I'm like, oh, but I feel like it's not exactly ready, and I just want to like baby it and make sure it goes in the best direction possible. So it's like this mixed feeling with bittersweetness, I would say.
Cool, cool. So I'm just going to jump in and start playing.
Yep.
So I've seen this at various points, but
Yep.
I've not actually fully played it now.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to dive in and then I'm going to start picking it apart.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
That sounds fine.
All right. So first of all, the story now.
There is, yeah.
This is something that Holly's spoken about a lot, who unfortunately can't be with us for the video portion.
Yeah.
But how's that been? So give me a bit more context to what I'm seeing here.
So On the Brink is set on a like Amazon-esque company's like ship. So you've got this robot called Hero, who's kind of their representative, and you're being stranded in this like scrapyard where they leave basically old technology that nobody wants anymore. They just leave this in the scrapyard, and you're stranded there, and Hero's trying to basically save you. So you're basically going around. The story is basically you're basically dealing with this horrible like company who doesn't really care about you necessarily. They just care about money and making sure the people who actually pay them, i.e. like the customers on board, are actually having a good time, not you. So you're just kind of running around dealing with like these complaints people are putting forward, just dealing with all the hazards and stuff to make sure they have a good time, and you're just suffering through it.
Yeah, I can see that there's been a lot of effort put into the story.
Yeah.
You know, whenever I've heard you or Holly talk about it, it seems like there was a lot of thought into those elements of it, trying to make it interesting, in which on the surface I think people wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
But it seems that everything I'm seeing so far, it's like, even all like the way it's talked about the controls, it's like there's a lot of effort put into it all like fitting the theme of it.
Yeah, Holly did like massive amount of trying to make sure that the idea I had initially, which was the whole like corporation, like consumerism stuff, was really like put forward in every single dialogue bit, in every single form, everything like that. It was always put at the forefront that was the point of Amity, and that's what Amity cared about.
Yeah, you can see that just throughout it, just oozes from this character. It's kind of satirical in a way. As I'm reading this, there's a little bit of me that wants to chuckle.
Yeah.
But
So
was that on purpose, or?
It's so intentional. Like, we really just wanted to take the absolute piss out of the whole idea of consumerism, because I think it's gotten to the point where even in like the real world, you can see a lot of this consumerist stuff. You know, you go to like Piccadilly Circus, and that's like a massive landmark, which is just advertisements, you know? And so we really just wanted to go, this is stupid. Like, we shouldn't really be treating products as if they're going to change our life when they don't. So.
I mean, everything you just said there, I feel like it's just come up on the screen now.
Yeah.
And well, this is new to me. I've not seen this. No. So what's with the customer complaints?
So we got
world building kind of thing.
We got the feedback from Mediatonic that it like the gameplay and the narrative didn't exactly mesh. So one of our ideas was to make sure that it felt more like you were doing everything and anything to appease Amity. So we decided that we are going to have these forms every day that the people you can respond to kind of get more in the line of you're there to help the customers, not other people. To kind of just push that narrative more to the forefront than just the combat, and there's also bits of narrative.
So, going into the combat a bit more, now that I'm running around. First of all, this is Hero.
This is Itto.
Itto, sorry. Nice little penguin. And you did all the art for this?
I did, yeah.
Can I just say that I love all of the art?
Thank you.
I love this little penguin. He looks awesome. So, can you go over the combat a bit? It's a twin-stick shooter, I know that much. So, could you elaborate a bit more on...
So, we took a lot of inspiration from Binder of Isaac because it had a lot of the roguelike-esque elements to it. It had the kind of chaotic feel that we wanted, because at the end of the day you are stranded in this horrible environment. So we went for a Binding of Isaac field because it felt, it was a game that me and Holly were the most familiar with, so therefore we could glean a bit more information from, but also because it just fit our narrative better. And yeah, we had the idea of like loads of enemies coming in, invading the ship. You like running around like a madman, like a one man mechanic, just trying to fix everything and like doing everything you can to just stop this invasion.
I mean, another element, obviously, this is on the screen right now, is the puzzles. So this kind of feeds into that whole company doesn't care, doing everything yourself kind of idea that you were talking about. If I can actually figure out the puzzle, that'd be fantastic. There we go. I'm not that bad. I figured it out eventually. I didn't realise how difficult it would be to play the game whilst interviewing someone. But you can kind of get the vibe, I think, of what you were going for, not just in the narrative, in the words, but how it looks as well. It's very like grungy and groggy in a way, but there's still a lot of colour that's popping from the characters and that. I already am panicking because I can notice that stuff on the ship is broken and I'm trying to pick up stuff and now I'm getting shot at. But I guess that was kind of the point. It's like you want that element of overwhelmingness for the narrative, but also not to, I guess, feel too busy. So what was it like trying to get that balance? I
mean, we started a lot with like just empty rooms, and that was the consistent feedback we got in terms of gameplay was, it feels empty, it still feels empty, but could you solve this, make it feel more chaotic? So we went around and went, okay, we're going to add new enemy behaviours, so there's guarding, there's patrolling, and of course they're obviously attacking the systems. We're going to add more different types of enemies. We're going to make sure there's a specific amount of enemies on board. We're going to make sure the breaches are more separated out, so they're more around the ship more. Just so it added to that, you're running around and you're not just going to the system rooms time and time again, you're exploring the whole ship. And that's what we really focused on. And right now it feels like we've had a good balance with it. So
yeah, and even other than the fact that I'm nearly dead, I can definitely see that across the weeks that we've been talking to you and I see the game's progress. I can see that balance a lot more now. But I imagine that must have taken ages. That must have been an incredibly long process.
It was a lot of like variable tweaks and like really nitpicky stuff. Like, okay, what if we started with like 2 enemies, like to start initially, like as soon as the game loads, there's always 2 enemies on board. And we're like, oh God, this still doesn't, okay, let's try 3. Oh, this still feels a bit weird, let's try 4. 4's too much, throw it down. So it felt a lot like just tweaking variables time and time again just to get that fine point of, okay, now this feels chaotic, but not overwhelmingly so.
I mean, that kind of just summed it up there. You could see I started to go, okay, the time was starting to go down now, I'm panicking a little bit. But I think it works really well so far. I mean, like everything I'm seeing, it's like, it seems you've hit the nail on the head for all of that. Could you elaborate a bit on how you went about, I guess, making things for the game? Like, what was the process like of testing stuff or coming up with ideas for the enemies and that? Like, what was it like with you and Holly coming up with the full idea of the game, I guess?
So Holly, of course, like the initial idea was always going to be like you're running around solving the ship kind of thing, and that of course tweaked when of course Holly came on board and she added more narrative ideas and stuff like that. And then like we just kind of went, okay, we need more enemy ideas because of course we always started with the dog. That was in our first prototype from the get-go. And so we went, okay, what ideas could we have? We looked at a lot like Binding of Isaac, we looked at Enter Gungeon, had a massive Word document just full of ideas that we had. And we immediately went, okay, we wanted enemies that could shoot, which was the main thing because of course it's a twin-stick shooter. It's a bit boring if no enemies shoot. And we decided that, okay, what if we have like one that shoots directly towards you and it's more like a turret base where it moves around into your like range, and that's how we came up with the box enemy. We had the 4-directional shooter, like the one that just kind of wanders around and shoots randomly, and then we had the idea of like the bomb enemy, which added like a new element into the game, the explosions. So it was just adding that a bit of variation just to make it feel a bit more like you had to learn enemy behaviours rather than the dog's always running towards you.
And now we get to upgrades.
Yep.
So this is something you spoke to me about quite a few times.
Yeah.
And now it's all in.
Yes.
And all working?
All working.
Cool.
This was the feature that I was most excited about because I like the idea of making this like shop front, like very vibrant, in your face kind of vibe. And it was the biggest pain to put in, but it feels so rewarding to see it in the game and actually working and feeling decent.
Yeah, I mean upgrades just in any kind of game are always a bit of a headache, but it seems like you've been able to put them in. And you mean you've got stats and everything.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of scrap on it.
No, you don't.
So I can get a tinker box.
You can.
What's a tinker box?
So the tinker box is kind of our mockery of the loot box system.
Okay.
So basically but to make it more fair, you buy one and then you just get 2 options and you get to pick one of them to make it a bit more easier and balanced. And we did that just to take the piss out of loot boxes because there's such a big thing in the industry right now. And we went, you know what would be funny is if our random thing was actually just a loot box and had that vibe.
So I've got my upgrade. It's
Yep.
called XL. I don't actually know what that means. Oh, I've got bigger shots now.
Yeah.
So they do more damage as well?
No. So the bullets are all just gimmicky. They're just like things that do new things and add new they do gimmicky things. So like there's a bullet that makes an enemy your friend. There's like a bullet that splits up when it hits an enemy. So we just wanted to have that gimmicky. So it's almost like when you see those really pointless products, they go, oh my God, this is going to change your life. This thing will allow you to open a cannon in more seconds.
So the really badly done adverts you'll find.
Yeah, that's literally the point of the bullet. So they don't actually, they add a bit to your gameplay, add a bit more strategy. They don't actually, change how much damage you do. That's actually just the stat upgrades. Yeah.
So what's the other plans that you might have? Is there anything else you want to add before the deadline?
So right now I'm working on a payslip kind of thing. So at the end of the day, instead of going straight to the shop, you go to a payslip screen, which tells you it's a payroll form where it tells you, okay, you've got this amount of money, you've got this amount in tips, and then here's some ridiculous deductions that LMT have randomly decided to remove. Here's a removal of your rent and water tax and stuff like that, just to emphasise that, you're getting minimum wage and they're taking every single penny they can from you. So that's one of the things I'm working on currently. There's also, we're adding currently, you've seen the bodies that the enemies leave behind. We're currently working on adding a to-do list at the end of the day. So you have to go around watering the plants, have to go around cleaning up the bodies and the blood. Just to make sure that you know that you're hired to do one job, but you're doing everything for them because you're the only person on board that can actually be bothered to do that. So yeah, that's the kind of idea.
That's fair enough. So I seem to be stuck.
Strange.
It's just the nature of Dev, isn't it? There's always a couple of bugs.
Oh.
Because I'm dead. But that kind of perfectly leads it in towards the end. So
yeah.
Admittedly, I was just gonna kill myself in it anyway, so we could wrap up. But I guess where I'll end it. Now I'm sad. I didn't know he died like that.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I guess that's it then. Well, before we wrap up then.
Yep.
Do you want to give us the spiel? So, what's the plan after uni? Do you plan to keep going with the project? Is it going to be available anywhere for people to look at?
So On the Brink has plans to potentially continue into the summer, but more as in a hobby-based thing for me and Holly, and we plan to have it available on itch.io and if possible maybe Steam, but that's not sealed in facts yet. But On the Brink will eventually have boss fights and stuff in the summer, but yeah.
Cool. So last question, sort of two-parter.
Yeah.
Are you happy with it overall? Are you happy with the work that you've been able to produce? Because personally, from what I've been playing here, it's been very impressive.
Yeah.
And I guess, is there anything you want to sort of end on? Because this isn't just the last project of the year. This is your last project, unless you stay on.
Yeah.
This is your last project at uni.
Yeah.
Then you're off in the big wide world. So is there anything you want to sort of say to like wrap it off nicely with a bow?
I mean, it's been a great experience. Like, when I started uni, I never thought I would actually be able to make a decent game that I think is decently fun. I always used to think, well, especially when you first introduce it, it's like very small, itsy bitsy parts of coding, and you're like, okay, but I'm never going to be able to make like amazing game. And 3 years on, I'm here like making something that I've always dreamed of, and it's that weird thing of, oh, this is really cool, and I'm really happy that I've had this opportunity to like spend 3 years just working on something I'm passionate about. So yeah.
Cool. Well, I would just like to say thank you for letting us cover
Yep.
it. It's been really interesting to see this game grow and change and all the work you and Holly have done.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think it goes without saying that I wish both of you all the best.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you taking the time every few weeks for me to come and stick a camera in your face.
That's all right. Anytime.
Cool. Thank you very much. So I'm here with 2/3 of the cauliflower night team. We've got Michal, we've got Ed. Unfortunately, Casey couldn't join us for this, but she's here really.
Yeah,
she's here in the game. All of the art was done by her, so this was made that clear. And obviously, even just looking at this first screen, the art's awesome. So full credit to Casey for that.
Oh yeah, she's been working really hard.
And of course, we're looking at cauliflower night. So obviously, I've been covering this for a few articles now. And I've actually sat down to play it all the way through and the state it's in now. Do you want to tell me a bit about what the game is? Like, I'm a consumer, I don't know what it is. Tell me what Cauliflower Night is.
So to me, it's a 3D puzzle platformer where the whole gimmick is centered around the fact that you play two characters. You switch between two characters who both have their own independent positioning. So it's not like something like Genshin Impact where you kind of just you become another character. It is you are playing two characters and they both affect the environment differently, and they both have their own unique attributes and weaknesses and strengths. And the idea is that you have to use them at the right times so that they complement each other and sort of help each other get through the game.
Well, let's get into it. Now, I've made no secret that I'm quite a fan of this from the start of it. I thought this was such an interesting idea, and even now, compared to looking at this at the beginning, there's so much more detail. As that just being a constant thing of making the world seem more detailed and not just how it looks by the animations and stuff. So I'm looking at the character now, the eyes blink, and it's just so much more animated. And obviously Casey's done a lot of the artwork for that.
Yeah, it's something we're working on currently, just adding more polish into a world, adding more details, making areas look unique. Because before we kind of focused on fundamentals mostly, just making sure the gameplay is right.
Yeah, I mean, so what's this character's name?
Ren.
So Ren is small and nimble. I can double jump. It's a nice little flip going on there. So, what am I doing? Help me, I don't know what I'm doing.
So, unfortunately, there's nothing to guide you in terms of what are you meant to be doing. But in future, we hope to have a cutscene be establish the story, here's what's going on. But for the meantime, it's kind of just a case of
Progress.
Yeah, try and explore as much as you can, and eventually you'll reach the end. It's just we're trying to make it so that it's a wordless tutorial. So hopefully players can just kind of mess about, figure things out for themselves, and
It's very teach as you play kind of thing.
Yeah, because the last thing I want is for players to feel like they have their they're either on rails or they're having their hand held the whole time. I kind of want players just to be do what you want in a safe space, and then kind of figure it out for themselves.
So, because you've done a lot of the level design for this, if not all of the level design.
Design.
Yeah.
All of it with suggestions from people, from playtesters and.
So, what's been the approach to level design? How do you go about not only just creating a level, but how did you think about in terms of what players would be doing? And you kind of mentioned it there. You want it to feel like you can kind of mess around and make mistakes and feel like it's not too punishing. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it's definitely what I've been aiming for. In terms of how I design a level, I try and design it in terms of almost non-literal pieces, right? So it's you start off, and the very first obstacle is you just have to jump up a little step, right? And it's a case of thinking, what does the player know at this point in time, because for all I know, if someone's never touched a video game in their life, they're not even like a 3D being, right? They don't understand how movement works. And it's a case of a player will not advance beyond this point until they understand this, this, and this. And then the next thing is like, oh, there's a door. You have to press the button, it opens the door. And it's a case of don't take for granted anything you assume the player will know until you know they've learnt it, right?
I guess that's kind of the case for this other character who I've just met. So this is the cauliflower knight.
This is the cauliflower knight, titular lad.
So this is the big thing in the game that you've been really focusing on in both the gameplay and just the overall vibe of what the player's doing. Two characters, both play very differently. So I'm obviously playing as Ren right here. Now if I swap over, I'm the cauliflower knight. Not much of a knight though, I don't have a weapon.
Well, you'll get one.
I've got to go and look for one. So these are new.
That's very new. Fun fact, I forgot to remove that. This was for testing, and because I was in such a rush to get a new, fresh build out, that there is now a tough enemy here. So my apologies for that.
Okay, well, I'm sure I'll be able to figure it out because I can see the weapon over there. I'll just avoid the slime.
Thankfully, it's where the sword is, so that works out.
So combat, you've built that out a little bit more, but not made it too much of the focus. It's more used in you kind of spoke about this in previous weeks. The aim was to make it feel more like you could use it within the puzzles.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
it's much more a means to an end.
Yeah, but there's still a bit of combat in there, as you can see. I'm blocking against this big scary slime monster. Is he wearing a crown?
Yes.
Big slimy king slime, sorry. And obviously I've got the sword, so I can start attacking him, which I will do in a minute when I stop panicking. So what's it been like trying to get that balance between the puzzles and the combat while I swing my sword wildly and most likely do a terrible job?
It was a huge struggle because everyone we spoke to had a different idea of the balance and what we want to see in a game. Everyone would bring up different games and say like, oh, it should feel like that game, it should feel like that game. But we kind of wanted to feel like any other game. So we just trusted our gut instinct and kind of listened to the problem. There's like example, something we've been taught constantly is just not locking onto enemies, and we just don't like the idea because that makes it very centric about specific enemy. But as you can see, these enemies don't take much to kill, so we don't want to focus on one enemy for a decent amount of time.
And I perfectly timed it to be able to beat the King Slime. So
well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So tell me a bit more about where the idea came from. So. Because it's quite a unique idea. I'm made of cauliflower, and then there's a little fox.
Miscellaneous creature.
Miscellaneous creature. How, is there going to be an idea to expand on narrative anywhere, or is the idea that it's more focused on gameplay? Because I'm getting some very like PlayStation 1, Crash Bandicoot, Super Mario 64 kind of vibes from this.
Yeah. Which,
for the record, is not a bad thing because I love those games. And there's been plenty of them that I reviewed. So what was kind of the approach to that, not just in the level design, but also the overall game feel?
I feel like, for me at least...
Kind of just, before you go any further, this is adorable, can I just say. I love all of this polish that you've put in. I think that's just a very nice touch that it rides on your back. I guess in case you did that as well.
This in particular was something I did a while back, but there's been a lot of like, Katie's been doing a lot of stuff in regards to like facial animations and stuff. Like it's really subtle to notice, but if you like attack or jump, he like flinches a little bit because he's moving fast.
Basically, there's like kind of 2 steps to development.
Oh yeah, I can see.
So there's a prototyping step, and there's basically just polished, like adding into the game step. So almost every feature you see was prototyped by Ed or me at some point, and then it was polished and added in the game as an actual feature.
So I want to touch a bit about some of the back-end work, because we spoke to you the other week about some of the work you had done. You'd worked on the player controller, which for the record feels very nice. So what was your approach to not just how you set it up, but what is it you wanted to sort of achieve with that? Because it feels really nice to play on a controller, and I think there was something you said the other week about we don't want it to feel like an Unreal game, you don't want that sort of Unreal feeling on the controller.
We didn't know exactly
I definitely don't get that.
We didn't know how to get to that point, but that was something one of us said at some point, I don't remember who, but it was said out loud like, yes, we don't want it to feel like a real game. And I think a lot of this was driven from the demo version of this game, so an absolute prototype, where it absolutely did feel like an Unreal game. So you could replace the character and work with like any other Unreal assets, and would just feel like same Unreal game as everything else. I think it's a bad taste if you can play the game and say straight away which engine it's made in, because that kind of means you just stick to default assets and default solutions, and you didn't actually think through what you wanted. Because with this character controller, we wanted to every single decision, every single small piece to be deliberate, and by making it from scratch, we knew we actually go through the entire process. Because if you just make the polished thing, it's very hard to appreciate how much goes into it.
So I'm starting to get into some of the puzzly bits now. So making an effort to like use both the characters. What was designing the puzzles like? Because I imagine it must have been a bit of a headache at times when you're trying to think. See, because they're two very distinct characters and they work in very distinct ways, which I guess could help with some of the design aspects. But what was that like? Was it challenging to come up with stuff, or did you find it quite easy because they were so distinct? And how did you get the nice balance of the two?
I think it's a case of it's really easy to make puzzles around this mechanic, but what's not easy is presenting all the information to a player that they'll need to solve it to make it fair, right? So it's a case of like here presenting so basically telling a player that they can even step on a button in the first place, right? And then establishing like, oh, there's some things that one character can do that other characters can't without outright saying it. In case like eventually like these puzzles are like really simple in the grand scheme of things of what we like plan to have. But for like more complex puzzles down the line, I think the hardest part is just being like, how do we teach the player things like that like projectiles get deflected from being hit by the shield and things like that. In this case of like, we have to try and set up scenarios where players will do something by accident and then learn from the fact they've done something by accident, and then they can like use that intentionally going forward.
Yeah, I think we kind of tried to avoid explicit tutorial where it says like, oh, press X to shoot an arrow, because we want to kind of teach a true narrative aspect of the level rather than just say it outright. Because whenever you say it outright, you kind of pull player out of it and you just remind them it's a game, which is not what
you want that fun gamey moment of like, I figured it out. Sort of. That seems like that's evident through the whole game.
Oh yeah, because I feel like players will feel much more satisfied. Like, I feel like if you're going to tell a player what to do, you may as well just have it be like a movie by that point, right? And I feel like if you can get players to try and have that sense of discoverability in everything they do, then it adds much more to the like interactivity, and you kind of make the most of the medium.
It's a real shame that Casey can be here, just so that I could say that I love this look, the whole vibe of it. And I know obviously you and Casey worked quite closely on some of this. What was the discussions like when you were talking about the art? Did you look at certain reference points, or was there certain things that you particularly wanted?
I think it was a case of like, so initially I was very vague about what I wanted, and Casey made that really apparent. And whenever I tried to talk about the sort of art direction of the project, I kind of realised that I had no idea what I was talking about. So it kind of became a case of like Casey taking a look at what we already had, assessing like the traits of it, what we can work with it, and then she would take that and then establish a tone and like style from there. Because it was like a case of like, I gave her the characters, and then she was like, oh, okay, this is how. She essentially figured out how to make things look consistent in the style that I'd made, but even more so than I did, because the things that I made back in the day weren't consistent at all, and she's found a way of almost kind of making the glue that puts it all together.
For a while we had it kind of stuck in the air if the game will be cel-shaded or not, because we wanted it to be cel-shaded, but we run into a lot of technical difficulties of getting it to that point, so we kind of stick to style which could work for cel-shaded game, but also looked decent by its own. But it's ended up working out and ended up being able to do cel-shading, so now it's really paying off the fact that we had it in mind to begin with.
So I found out recently, and I think a congratulations is in order, that you've started applying for additional funding for this.
Yes.
So
fingers crossed.
So you plan to keep going with this?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What are some of your future plans for Cauliflower Night?
Future plans. I don't know if you want me to talk about it or you talk about it.
I mean, we can both talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you both do. It's a group project. You've all got ideas.
So we're applying for Transuser to possibly get further funding and then compete for kind of a prize spot if we want more funding to basically just finish the game. Because right now we have a very polished tutorial and we have very polished base for a game, but we actually don't have enough time to add content. So we have all these nice tools and all these nice things which work, but there's just not enough of them. The entire game can be completed in 25 minutes or so.
So you want to sort of like build it out more, have a bit more time and
Basically.
resources to like...
Yeah.
We have amazing proof of concept, but it's like everything, all our levels was stripped out.
Yeah, essentially, all we've made is just like a really strong foundation. And I feel like within further development, it's literally a case of like expanding upon it, making more areas that gradually get harder. Introducing a story is probably like the most brand new thing, so there's nothing conveyed here at the moment. But other than introducing a story and narrative, it's basically just making more of it.
And the system we have for graphics right now looks amazing with our lightings and our kinds of environments. So expanding on different kinds of art levels would be really interesting.
I mean, it's no secret, I think this is a great project. I think every project we've looked at has been fantastic, but this, like, it's this nostalgic core for me from like games from when I was younger. I guess to sort of wrap up, because we sort of, you know, finished up with what we've done for today, I guess I just want to ask, do you have any takeaways from the project? You kind of touched on plans afterwards, but I guess, are there any specific things that you want to get done before the deadline or after the deadline building this out, with funding or without? And then I guess, what's it been like, not just working on this project, but the whole uni experience? Because, you know, this is it. This is the last project, and then you're out in the big wide world.
Crikey.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that?
In regards to the big wide world thing, I'm simultaneously excited and terrified, as you can probably imagine. But in regards to where I want to take this project in terms of, regardless of funding, in terms of just uni deadlines, I really want to get it to a point where it feels like a demo that you could download on some sort of like game store, right? Where it's like, so we get a cutscene in and we finish, so cutscene for the beginning and the first boss at the end. So then it's like, it's almost like one core loop of like, you go through a level, you learn the mechanics, you explore the environment, you reach the end, you then apply everything you've learned to take down like a big boss, and then it's like, we've made like a single bite of what we intend like the whole sandwich of an experience to be. So,
It's a bit unfortunate timing what you get to see this game in this state, because right now it's basically the most rapid stage of development where we probably the most rapid stage of development since first weeks of working on this project, because now when we take last 20% of a project missing, so like animation's not working right, some visual stuff missing maybe, and we add all this in, and it really makes the game look different. It makes it look not as just some student project thrown together, but something you could actually see in a store for a console.
I mean, what I see here, I wouldn't have thought that. This seems very well put together. This is far better than the work that I did, I'll tell you that much. I guess that's it really, but I would just like to say thank you for letting me look at your game for the last few weeks. It's been really great to watch this develop. I think this is a fantastic project. I really hope you get the funding. I wish you all luck with that, because I think this could be something really interesting with more time and money put into it.
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
And I think both you two and Casey have done a fantastic job with this, and I think you should be very proud of the work. And if you do take it further and it ends up on Steam or Itch, wherever you decide to put it, you know at least you've got one customer who will come and have a look at it. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm sitting down with Tia, and we're going to be looking at Cryptid Party.
Yep.
So obviously we've been covering this in all the other articles, been working on this on your own. Do you want to tell me a bit about what Cryptid Party is?
So Cryptid Party is a walking simulator made in Unreal, in which the player hosts a house party for cryptids and has to find each of the cryptids items in order to make everybody up at the party. Wow, I forgot my elevator pitch.
Have fun at the party?
Yeah.
That's good enough. So, am I allowed to get into this?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, first of all, this is something that people will see in the other articles. There's a cutscene.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that's been brought up quite a bit, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So, I guess it's setting the scene. First, I mean, it looks awesome, first of all. I can tell just from watching this that there's a lot of effort put into it. Very comic book style. I think it fits really well with the theme of the game. So what was the idea behind this? It's like response to feedback or anything like that, or did you say, I want to put this in?
So the opening cutscene was made as a direct response to players and like playtesters not really understanding like the entire context like behind the game, and like because I would like constantly get asked like during like playtesting sessions like why am I doing this? Who are these like cryptids? I don't really understand. And so like although I like before this was added, I added in like small elements of like world building, like graffiti on the walls that like sort of explained what you had to do and like not really why you were doing it. I took the time to develop a intro animation that would sort of go over the entire background to give players that sense of like what's actually going on in the game.
Yeah, I mean, like the cutscene, I mean, the artwork is excellent, but I love the visuals of this and like the whole theme, the sound, all of it I think is excellent. And you've done all the artwork for this?
Yes.
And you get all these cute little buddies over here, so he's happy now. Oh, I love the confetti. But yeah, that's like not too new, the confetti, but I just think it just adds so much to all of this. But I know nothing about cryptids, so can you explain to me what a cryptid is for one, and what was the decision behind wanting to put in cryptids? So is it like a thing from when you were younger? Is it something you look into now? Like, where did the idea come from?
So cryptids are something I've known about for quite a while, ever since I used to read like these books that were like all about like the most haunted, spooky things, and then like it'd have a page dedicated to like weird creatures around the world. But essentially, cryptids are essentially mythical creatures that there are like legends about them, but they're not scientifically proven to exist. So like Bigfoot or like Mothman.
I don't know Mothman, and so like all of the sort of folk, I guess you could say folklore, like stories that people say like, oh, there's like the Loch Ness monster. That's all counts as a cryptid.
Yeah.
I hate that.
But yeah, ever since like I've read those books, I've always had like an interest for like weird, bizarre like monsters, like even the ones in this room.
So what are some of the ones in here? So who's this fella?
That is the Jersey Devil. He's definitely more stylized than the original, because all of the cryptids in this game are based off of real cryptids. But when like I was designing them, I sort of wanted to give them more of like a character that would sort of fit stereotypical like American like frat party.
Yeah, I mean that's really clear. You can see all of it here. Like you got the flags up and the posters. Like this looks like a college dorm room.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of lost in just how it looks at the minute. Like I know this is something that you really care about, the visuals of it. What was it like developing those? So what was your decision behind this style and this fella's name? And like all of the decisions like that.
So the visual style, like the neon colours on like sort of very like two-tone background, was sort of inspired by black lights, and like the sort of neon colours you might see at like well sometimes by like a rave. And the characters like being all angular and like super defined by their like silhouettes was sort of a decision I made during their like creation mode, like actually making the art. it was a decision that was made to like really emphasize their characters through their like exaggerated poses or like outfits or even like facial expressions, really.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that in these fellas, and these are obviously new because they weren't here a moment ago.
Yes.
So as I'm doing more, the party gets more lively.
Yeah.
What was it like to implement that? Was that another playtester thing, or like, because it adds to it? It's really weird, but even just seeing a couple more characters having a few drinks, it just sort of fills it out more, and it's like you can see the party getting more gnarly. Was that the word that you used at the beginning? Gnarly?
That is the word I use. Yeah, the background characters were added because, like, well, initially the game was like very empty. It did not feel like a party, but so the characters like were made to like fill out the background. They sort of appear every time you get a cryptid item, and as it's basically made so that as you progress through the game, the party will become like more populated.
So as well as doing all of the artwork, you've done everything else in the game.
Yeah.
Because you were doing the solo dev work. So you've done all the coding. What was that like? Because I, for one, know nothing about coding. It was never my strong suit. So what was it like learning new bits of code and, I guess, refining what you already had? Like, was it difficult? Was it easy? What was the experience like?
So I went into it, like, I went into the project very confident because I was like, as I've like said in previous weeks, this game was like sort of built off of my knowledge when I was like, well, that I gained like when I was producing my previous like project for last year in uni, which was also a walking sim. But as this game is much more complex, there's like much more like going on in it. I quickly found that a lot of the coding stuff I had to. I could figure some of it out by myself, but like a majority of it, like the big, really complex stuff, I was like, okay, well, I might ask for some like assistance so this doesn't get like way too messy, or like I'm not spending like a week on one thing that could be done very, very quickly. So that's been really helpful. So like as the project has gone on, I've just got like faster and faster with like the coding, really, because of that.
Yeah, just like that, getting more confident and understanding it more, so like you can sort of focus on the art.
Yeah.
Just, you know, all of this is like incredibly well done. I'm loving these two over here. This fella's panicking. I can tell he's losing because he's shaking his controller a bit too much. It's starting to sweat a bit. So what was the approach when you wanted to make the cryptids? Like, because they obviously stand out quite a bit, and there were specific ones you must have picked up. Are any of these original ones, or did you want them all to be based off of them, or how much of it's like your influence on them?
So all of them.
I mean, like, look at this fella.
All of them are based off of existing cryptids, and like initially I was trying to base them off of their like depictions, but like existing depictions. So Nessie's in the pool. The Jersey Devil has devil in his name, so he must be like, I don't know, cool or something.
It's like a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, even his dance, he just flexes his muscles.
As their designs sort of progressed to like the initial sketches, I sort of shifted more towards, okay, they're based off existing cryptids, but I think I'm gonna lean into designing them after like stereotypes of like stereotypical like people that might be in like an American frat or like attend a party. Some of them are like just inspired. Some of them are like very much supposed to be that. Like the Bat Beast here that's about to get the item is supposed to be like a nerd with his like Argyle, and he's got like a bow tie on him.
Yeah, he looks very happy now he's got his glasses.
Yeah, that he can't wear because he doesn't even have a head.
Yeah, I was wondering that when I came across him, actually. Noticed he didn't have a head. So there's something else that I saw that I'd like to get some details on. What is going on in this room? It's like quite ritualistic. So like, what's going on in it?
Okay, that is the Corkboard Room. This room was essentially designed in response to playtesters not exactly knowing like what was happening in the game. So like they didn't know when they were progressing through the game. They didn't know like if they were being rewarded to do that. They didn't know if that was even like the right thing to do. So I decided to make a room that was designed after like a again like a stereotypical what are they called, like
It's like a frat party, house party kind of thing that you see at American college. That's kind of the vibe.
yeah,
That'd
but,
be right.
but also mixed with like a conspiracy theorist like board with like a corkboard filled with like a bunch of like strings leading to stuff.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I decided to as like progression was like definitely a thing that I wanted the players to be able to track and like understand which cryptids they haven't like attended to, which cryptids they had. I designed like pictures of each of the cryptids that would initially start in the Corkboard Room, like scattered all across the floor. And the player would like find that room and they'd see that like they're scattered around the corkboard, and then on the wall is a piece of graffiti that says "Summon the Party God," like linked with a wire to the corkboard. So that lets the player like understand, oh, that's like what I need to achieve, and it must have something to do with doing something or interacting with these cryptids on the floor.
So I want to point this fella out quick, because he's the one different, like, shall we say, normal-looking person at the party.
Yes.
Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, he is a special background character. So alongside the actual like normal background characters that will join in on the party, like the more cryptids have received their items, those ones are designed to look like cultists to fit in with the theme of like summoning the party god. Alongside those, special background characters will start to spawn, and the special background characters are designed to specifically resemble or be references to people, cryptids, like...
I'm just trying to get over
like
this
that.
haggis ice cream as well. Yeah, so who was that character I was looking at then?
Yes, so the person you were just looking at was my uni lecturer, Alan.
Oh, that's a nice little cameo to throw in there.
Yeah.
So what else is there that you want to add or expand on, if there is anything? Because you seem to have built this out like so much since we saw it in the first few weeks. There's like so many more cryptids, there's a lot more foliage and things going on. The party is getting more gnarly as it goes on. I'm going to keep using that word.
Yeah.
So what's sort of the next ideas that you want to add in?
So, coming up, like in the weeks coming up, I plan on introducing the street surrounding the house, like for the player to explore. So there will be a new cryptid who is like a sort of shady cryptid, and he's like selling keys. And by giving him an item, the player will gain access to the front door, and they will be able to like go out on the street. Yeah.
I mean, it's getting pretty gnarly in here. It's just become the word of this game now. It's just pretty gnarly. But it fills out the world quite a bit, just seeing all these different characters, and it just feels very like lived in. And again, I think it just exemplifies all of your incredibly well done art, because I think the sense of place and all of that is so well done in this game. But there was one little thing I noticed out here that I wanted to have a look at. These look familiar, like maybe some other student games that we possibly have been looking at.
Yep.
So what's going on here? We got a cauliflower knight, a penguin, and we got Ren.
Yes. So, alongside the background characters that act as references to people or like video series, I also wanted to sort of commemorate, if that's the right word, other like student games and their characters within Cryptid Party through these sort of background characters to just represent those games.
I mean, there's not much more I can say other than the fact that I think this is a really impressive piece of work. And the last few weeks where we've been looking at it and hearing about your work, especially working on your own, I think this is incredibly impressive. I think it shows a lot of character, a lot of different skills being used. You know, you've programmed, you did art, you've done a lot here. And I think this is really impressive. Like, you should be very proud of this piece of work, because I think it's excellent.
Thank you.
I guess the last sort of thing I'd ask is, what do you want to do afterwards with the project, if anything? Do you want to take it much further than those features you mentioned? And I guess in a roundabout way, what's next for Tia, and how do you feel about that? You know, this is it. This is the last project of uni.
Yeah.
And you're out in the big wide world. So how's that feel?
That's a little daunting.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Beyond like uploading this game, or like the demo of where it is right now to itch, I do plan on like working on like this further, and probably trying to like work on it to completion, and actually uploading it to a marketplace like Steam. So with that, like I guess just with that, that is definitely like reassuring for me and like the future, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I just want to, thank you for letting us have a look at it first of all, and to further that, I just want to thank you for letting us cover it the last few weeks and letting us pester you, because it's been really great to see this develop, and I think this is a very great, well done piece of work. You should be very proud of it, and I look forward to seeing where else it goes. And if you do decide to take it further or work on something else, I'll be happy to look into it. Unless there's anything else you want to add?
Nope.
Cool. I'm good with that. Well, yeah. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
And there we have it. It's the end of GDD. But before we go, I would just like to say a couple of thank yous. I want to say thanks to the people involved making these. Luke, who has done all of the editing, he's done all of the lighting, and he's just been fantastic to work with. I want to thank Kieran. He's been making us sound better and fixing sound in post-production. Without him, we wouldn't sound as good as we do. And most importantly, I want to thank all of the students who have taken part. Their games have been excellent. They've been excellent to talk to. Incredibly insightful, passionate about what they do, and I've no doubt that they're going to make great things in the future. I want to thank the university for letting us bother their students for weeks on end. And I want to thank all of you for watching and reading, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.